All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you. Welcome to the special summer edition of Contemporary Jewish Thought. And I know there's still some people coming into the waiting room. We are here this afternoon. We have some guests with us from Hand in Hand, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. I do just want to acknowledge, and I think they're on here, although I'm not sure, Debbie Bresnay and Ruth Rothseed for championing this dialogue, making sure that this really critical conversation happen. I want to thank you both for your partnership and as I said, making sure that this dialogue comes to fruition. We are in a time in our history, a time of the year, for all kinds of reasons why um, what we've seen highlighted over the last months since October are the ways in which in Israel, Jews and Arabs, I'm looking at the Hand in Hand website that says it perfectly, live in separation, fear, violence. And we are going to be in dialogue with Hand in Hand this afternoon and hear about their mission to change that and the ways in which we all know that any change is going to begin with our youth and the way in which they are educated. So it is my pleasure to welcome to the Park Avenue Synagogue community Leah Beinhaker, who is the Director of Resource Development in Hand, and Mohammed Marzouk, who is the Director of Growth Initiatives. And the way we will proceed for the next 58 minutes is we'll hear from Leah, we'll hear from Mohammed. I'll have some questions. We'll be in dialogue, and we encourage you to utilize the chat feature and to please put questions in the chat, and we will do our best to get to as many of those questions as possible. So welcome again for those who are just coming on. As I said, this is our special summer edition of Contemporary Jewish Thought. I hope you're all having a wonderful, restful, restorative summer. And with that, Leah, I want to welcome you, Mohammed, and I want to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. And I want to echo the thank you to Ruth and Debbie for creating this opportunity for us to share with you. It feels more important than ever to be talking about what Hand in Hand does. And really, since October 7th, for these almost 10 months, Hand in Hand's work has been more difficult and more crucial than ever before. And Mohammed and I look forward to talking to you about both of these aspects. My journey to Hand in Hand began many years ago when I was a young girl growing up in a modern Orthodox Zionist home in Toronto. And throughout my childhood and my early adulthood, I had a very deep connection to Israel and a real sense of identification with the Jewish people. And there was a turning point for me in 1995 in November when Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated. And I decided to move to Israel and to become part of the nation building project that I had learned about in my childhood. I moved here, and a number of years later, not too long later, the second intifada started. And that was the most challenging, painful period that Israel had experienced for many years until now. And I think that the crisis we're in now exceeds anything we've seen before in many ways that Mohammed will elaborate on. And I'll share more about myself later. For now, I'll turn it over to Mohammed.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us for this conversation about what Hand in Hand does and the situation here. My name is Mohammed Marzouk, as was presented before. I was born here in an Arab village to an Arab family, and lived as any other Arab kid who grew up here at the country. I think one of the unique things that brings me to our context is that I was, let's say, somehow lucky that my parents sent me to a Jewish school from a very early age. So I had the opportunity to get and connect to Jewish youngsters at my age at a very early age, comparing to children at my age in the Jewish and the Arab side. Generally, mostly we grow up in segregation. Arabs grow up in Arab communities, Jews in their communities. And if there is any opportunity to meet, usually it's after the age of 18, occasional meetings, not something that enable to get to know to each other on a human basis. Usually these are all mostly functional meetings that last for a few minutes and then everyone goes to his own things. So this experience, I think, had affected me, and I think affected me until now. I'm in my early 50s, and I can say that from the age of 20, 21, I'm involved in Arab Jewish activities that bring Jews and Arabs together to meet, to get to know each other. One of my, I can say, important points when I got into the recognition that if we want to establish a sustainable shared society between Jews and Arabs, then we have to break this segregation in something that brings us on a daily basis, not only occasional meetings. And that's how I came together with Arab and Jewish friends to work 20 years ago to establish a Jewish Arab school in my region. Happily, we succeeded to open that at 2004 in the middle of the Second Intifada. And this actually became the third hand-in-hand school in Israel. And since 2004, the school is opened. My 3 children went to the school. They graduated. Dozens of children came to this school, Jews and Arabs, and they actually practice what we had the opportunity to do is actually to grow together in a normal basis, as a normal thing. And that's what I'm doing in hand. My ambition is to open more and more schools for Jews and Arabs for hand in hand here in Israel. I consider myself as a lucky person who has his ambitions and values meeting his job and his professional work. And I've been doing this for hand in hand for 10 years. In my term, we opened at the past years 3 schools. Today, hand in hand is 6 schools. We have schools in Jerusalem, Jaffa, Haifa, the Triangle region, what we call here at the Galilee, and of course the school at my town, Kufar in Wadi Ara, which is also a very unique thing, a Jewish Arab school in an Arab town, which is a very strong message that Jewish children come every day to an Arab town and they are very safe and they feel safe, their family feels safe, and they feel that they can come and feel that this is their school. They're not coming to the other school, they're coming to their school. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
So I'll take it from here. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Leah, go ahead.
Do you want to ask a question?
Well, I appreciate both of the backgrounds. I think it's very important for us to understand where the two of you are coming from. And I'm wondering if you could sort of flesh out a little bit the sort of the how the schools work, right? Like tell us about the actual schools, how kids might opt into these schools. I mean, I've got a lot of questions, but and then of course we want to talk about at some point what's going on in the schools today post October 7th, right? So
Great. So that's where we'll pick it up now, is how these schools work. And I'll just echo something that Mohammed said, which is that it was very unusual for him as a young Arab student to go to school with Jewish students. In Israel, over 99% of Jews and Arabs study in separate schools. And hand-in-hand schools exist to break down that division. And we bring Jews and Arabs together from the youngest ages through preschool, elementary school, and high school. The way these schools work, Rabbi, is that parents opt in, choose this school, one of these 6 schools, and the students can attend from anywhere from preschool. They can come in any age. They learn together, and they learn about one another, and they learn with one another. They study Hebrew and Arabic. They study one another's history, culture, religion, and they learn in an age-appropriate way that's kind of progressively complex as they age. They learn about the issues that we face as citizens in Israel, and they learn to dialogue. They learn to listen in a way that's resilient and respectful. They learn that we don't necessarily agree, and we might disagree really robustly about things, but they learn that we need to be able to listen and talk in order to work together as citizens. And these schools are public schools. All of hand-in-hand schools are public schools. The government provides core funding for the schools, and donors, generous donors from New York and other cities in America and other countries around the world supplement the funding that we get from the government so that these schools can be integrated, bilingual, with unique curricula that isn't available anywhere else in this country, and that makes it okay and possible for Jewish and Arab students to study together, to learn in a way that's reflective of all of our backgrounds and sensibilities. That's how the schools function, but there's a layer that's really important to discuss, which is that the parents serve as an envelope of support around the schools. It doesn't work. This kind of grassroots change doesn't work with parents relating to schools as clients and we're the providers. Rather, they're partners. They're partners in social change, and this is a courageous movement for social change. Over 10 years ago, we started, Mohammed started, the community organizing department, with which we mobilize parents so that the parents can learn a bit about what the students are going through. These parents grew up separated the way all Israelis do, all citizens here. So the parents come together, we bring them together over the course of the year, thousands of Jews and Arabs, to learn with each other different texts, to dialogue, to talk about what's happening in society, and to build an integrated community. So the schools and the communities together are how Hand in Hand operates. And our schools have won national and international awards and are really, really unique in Israel.
I mean, it's extraordinary, and I think that the layer of the parental involvement is absolutely critical. The schools have been open long enough, I assume, to have some data about impact. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to what you've learned in terms of creating that kind of shared society, which is the stated goal/vision of Hand in Hand.
Sure. Mohammed, is it okay if I address this and then pass it to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So impact is something we're really interested in studying, and we look at it on different levels, the individual student level, the individual parent level, the community level, and also the societal level. And we see proof of impact on all of these levels. The students themselves have changes in their attitudes, in their knowledge, and in their behavior as young adults. So too with the parents. The communities operate in ways that you don't see Jews and Arabs operating around this country outside of Hand in Hand. And we can share more about that when we talk about how it's been since October 7th in these very difficult 10 months. And on the societal level, there are municipalities that have started to recognize that Hand in Hand has expertise that is needed in Israel. So for instance, the Jaffa municipality reached out to Hand in Hand after October 7th and asked for some support and guidance in how to bring Jews and Arabs back into shared workplaces in this very, very painful, volatile time. And some of our staff who are experts in this provided some insights into how to support employees in an integrated workplace. That's a bit about the impact.
Mm-hmm. Mohammed, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that some of our impact also is in the public message that even in tough times, Jews and Arabs still can come together and bring a different voice to their communities, and through this to bring a different message than what's happening at the last 10 months and in other times. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that we're in war. In my term, experience at least 5 or 6 wars between Israel and the Palestinians. And the fact that we can create structures, robust structures that can help and support people to continue come together is a very impactful thing that we bring over and wider than the students and their parents who come to our schools and communities. I remember in former years, for example, when we had some racist events in some city or something like that. For example, in Haifa a few years ago, one of the cafes asked Arab workers not to speak Arabic between themselves when they are at work. So what our community did, they went, there were almost 30 parents, and they read with their children, and they read, a story in Hebrew and Arabic at the cafe, and bringing a message that Arabic is not an enemy language here in Israel. So these actions are wider than what happens on the daily basis in our schools. If I take the past 10 months since October 7th, I think at the beginning we literally were one of the very, very few places in which Jews and Arabs could come and be at the same room and share what they feel. The fact that we were able to be at the same space, something that I think gave the message of the strong base of mutual trust and friendship that exists at Hand in Hand, and something that our children, our teachers, continued to believe in each other, and we were actually the base of hope to each other, that with the catastrophe that we experience, and it's a real catastrophe what is happening and still happening since October 7th is one of the basic things that improved itself, that this model of shared society based on mutual recognition and the belief that we as human beings are equal and believe in each other and believe in a different scenario that could happen to this country, I think one of the great things that we had, with all these tough things that are happening since October 7th.
Yeah, the only other place that when I was just in Israel, we met with the Jerusalem Youth Choir. It's the only other place that I know of where Arabs and Jews are not just in dialogue, but social relationships. And I think they just on America's Got Talent? Yeah, okay.
They were.
Yeah, so it is exceptional and extraordinary. And I'm following, Leah, your response to the chat. Someone sort of mentioned in the chat that how exceptional the parents must be who opt into this school. You used the word courage earlier, and I'm always interested in how the community responds to families who opt into these schools. And by the community, I mean those who don't opt in, right? So, Mohammed, I want to start with you. Can you talk a little bit about how does the Arab community in these towns, and I assume it's not just these towns because people are coming from all kinds of different towns, but the family who says, I'm sending my child to a hand-in-hand school, and I myself will be involved in this dialogue and social relationships, etc. What's their place in the community? How does the community respond to them?
Well, I can say that these are people who, at the very basic level, believe in the possibility of living together in peace and dignity between Arabs and Jews. And that's something that's the basic thing why they send their children to our schools. But I can say also that it's not an easy thing at these times to be a parent or a citizen who still believe in shared living. So we get a lot of criticism, sometimes cynicism. Are you still going to your Jewish friends? These are some of the response that I got, and I assume other parents. So these are very tough times for those Jews and Arabs who still believe and still want to create a different society based on different values than the dominant values that are determining the behaviors of majority of Palestinians and Jews here in the country. So it needs a strong belief. It needs a faith, and it's not an easy time for a Jewish parent or an Arab parent to be in such a position.
Yeah, Leah, maybe you can comment from the Jewish perspective, from the Jewish community perspective. What I mean, I actually, and I don't know why I'm surprised, but the Mohammed, the fact that you told me there's a hand-in-hand school in an Arab town, and that right, and that Jews are going into that town and feel safe and protected in their community, and I can only imagine what some of the Jewish feedback on that is. Leah, can you speak to the similar courage on the Jewish side of these
Yeah,
cases?
I think it's been, like Mohammed said, I think it was always the case that Jewish parents who opt into the schools get some pushback, some kind of like maybe puzzlement, um, or cynicism even. But since October 7th, it's become, there's antagonism. There's outright antagonism. People are opposed to the idea of us learning together. And it's just really, we're working really upstream, and these parents are doing that by making this courageous choice every day. And the one school that we have in an Arab town is really exceptional. And it's been, like Mohammed said, he was one of the founding parents of the school. And it has created its own legacy where parents feel safe, Jewish parents feel safe, and the students come. But it is hard to recruit more Jewish students now. It's harder than ever to recruit more Jewish students now, especially to that school. And to all of our schools. There was a question in the chat whether we've seen an increase in enrollment. Well, first of all, I have to say we were really, really grateful to see that we didn't lose students after October 7th. Schools around the country shut down by order of the Ministry of Education for almost 2 weeks. Every school was shut down, and we moved to Zoom, like in every other school. And as soon as the ministry lifted the regulations and allowed schools to reconvene, we brought our schools back together. But in declaring to the principals and the principals passing on to the educators and parents that the schools were going to open in the morning the following day, we didn't know that the teachers would show up. We didn't know the parents would bring their students. We had concerns that maybe, a small number would show, there'd be a trickling, and a lot would stay home out of fear. And we were just so grateful to see that the parents brought the kids and the teachers came back. And it wasn't easy. It has not been easy. Like Mohammed said, we're one of the very, very few places in Israel where Jews and Arabs have continued to be in the same room and in conversation, in really difficult conversation about the most charged things since October 7th and in these 10 months. And it hasn't been easy. These conversations aren't easy. They're not easy, even for colleagues who really so deeply appreciate each other, like Mohammed and I. It takes real resilience and courage, and a lot of mutual respect. And more than anything, it takes a commitment to understanding that there is no future for Jews in this land if there's no future for the Arabs in this land, and converse. So we're in this together.
Yeah, Leah, I want to come back to the sort of post 10/7 dynamic, but just one observation and then one more question before we turn to post. As I listen to the two of you talk about our respective communities, it actually is an interesting link to our shared ancestor Abraham, who was called an Ish Ivri, mistranslated probably as a Hebrew, but the rabbinic interpretation, Muhammad, I'm not sure if you know this interpretation, but that Abraham stood across the river, as in opposition to the rest of the world who saw things one way, and right, he was an iconoclast. He saw things a different way, and the strength and the courage of parents to say, not only am I going to send my children to a shared school, but post 10/7, we are going to double down on the fact that the only way forward is in a shared society. So it's a level of courage that I think is extraordinary. Before we turn to post 10-7, I want to just hear a little bit about, this came up in the chat, and Leah, you answered it, but I'd love a little more color on this, the ways in which these kids socialize, because the school, it's not just that, you've got, the Jews on one side, the Arabs on the other. If that's the case, right, in a school, I suspect that it's not really that effective, but it's the integration, the socialization, that is probably where the magic happens. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the ways in which these kids are friends and socialize and do what kids do, with all the outside pressure that you're describing, but what's the social dynamic in these schools?
Sure. It's rich. It's rich, and it's also very, very varied. So we see from young ages that the younger the students start together, the more they integrate really, really naturally. And as students mature and come to pre-adolescence and adolescence, there's the natural kind of, they're friends, but they also have the natural kind of dawning awareness of ways in which they're different. And our societies are different, and parental expectations are different for the most part in Jewish families and Arab families. But you can see, so there's a lot of befriending, there's a lot of like beautiful integration, and it's not like we become all the same. We stay different. One place that you see the students interacting as though there's no difference between them is in soccer, and you especially see this between young boys. What matters there is who's got the ball and who plays well, and not who speaks Arabic or who speaks Hebrew. And it's just really beautiful to see. We often hear from visitors that if visitors who speak Hebrew and Arabic, that when they interact with the young students on one of our campuses, they don't always know if they're speaking to a Jewish student or an Arab student. And that's the most remarkable thing in a country where the dominant language is Hebrew and so few Jews speak Arabic. But in our schools, the students know how to speak one another's language. As they grow up, they stay friends, and the differences, as I said, become a little bit more pronounced. And it becomes even more tricky when these high school students get to grade 11 and 12, and the question of army service becomes relevant for the Jews and not for the Arabs. And it's a very difficult topic for students to parse through together. And they do. They talk about it because it has to be talked about. It's a big part of society here. And we have alumni who stay so closely in touch. We have an alumni network, which is part of how we interact with our communities. We have hundreds of alumni, and we bring them back together for activities throughout the year. And it's really incredible to see the relationships that the alumni have with one another, and how they feel that they share a certain kind of DNA that really helps them feel different. Like they have a different experience and a different sense of what's possible than the peers from their own communities who didn't have this integrated educational experience.
Mohammed, do you want to add anything to that in terms of the social dynamics in the schools?
Yeah, I can only give a few examples from my children and others, that for them, being part of such a unique thing, this uniqueness is much more for us as adults who are aware to how our society, our country is divided. For them, until 5th or maybe 6th grade, they grew up in an environment that this is a natural thing. Now, they have friends. My children went to sleep at their friend's home in some occasions. some of their Jewish friends, more than 1 year, came to us, to our home, and they spent and they ate with us, and we had dinner, and they played with my children, and they did have fight with each other on children basis. Yeah, for them, this is a natural thing. Now, even my children left school 12 years ago, and they now just graduated university. I think one of the basic education and the basic values that they were educated on, hand in hand, still with them until today. And this is a very important thing. Now, and this is one of the, I would say, maybe the sad things for me, that, at the end of the day, after such a meaningful years to educate a child, a son or a daughter in a shared school, when they grow up and go to universities or others, if they don't have this opportunity to be part of the alumni network of Handidat or something like that, they will go back to a segregated society. Now, this is something that, on the other hand, we try to change. But I'm sure, I'm confident that those who come to Hand in Hand will continue to raise this flag and continue to work and to behave according to these values. And that is a very important and great thing that I'm very proud of.
Yeah. Maybe we can come back to some of the alumni, the ways in which you engage alumni. I'd love to just shift to post October 7th. I think that's on the minds of a lot of people on this call, and specifically how that impacted the school itself, the schools, I should say, the ability to have challenging conversations. In some ways, it feels like this is what Hand in Hand was built for. And I can also imagine how challenging it must have been. So I'm wondering if you can talk about both sort of the dynamics socially, educationally in the schools, and also the ways in which the methodology of Hand in Hand, the intentionality, sort of continues to try and facilitate these relationships, conversations, et cetera. So what's it like in the schools these days? I mean, it's got to be challenging, and yet, if not there, where are these conversations going to happen?
So first, I want to say that we had some levels of influence of the October 7th that I would say that we haven't experienced before in Israel and Palestine and at the whole region. One of the, besides the total catastrophe that we feel, the numbers, the unprecedented numbers of victims and the destruction, and created a situation of fear and lack of trust of how the future of the both communities would look like as a result of what happened and at October 7th, that all these feelings and fears that actually the structures, the state is going into something that we don't know, created a situation of high levels of fear that parents, teachers, staff members of Hand in Hand brought with them, all of us, to the schools and to the organization. So in our practice, we believe in an open dialogue, that whenever something happens, our message that we can come and dialogue and talk together and share our feelings and share our thoughts. And because that's something that we do it as a day on regular basis in our work. So when October 7th actually happened, it was for us to call our staff, educators, parents to come and to share and to talk. And even if you are angry, we feel like a safe zone that you can bring your anger and your feelings and things like this. And so we had our dialogue staff, who are professionals that we train for this special work. At the very first week after October 7th, worked very, very hard and extra hours in working with teachers, with principals, with parents, offering dialogue sessions, at the evening for parents, afternoon for school staff, and also for us. And we did that every school staff at least had 5 or 6 dialogue sessions together with our facilitators. For communities, we did the same. So this kind of practice actually helped us to pass and to deal with the shock. And it was a real shock for everyone.
And Mohammed, did students and parents show up for these dialogues? In other words, one response could be, well, we're done. We're not even going to dialogue. But the fact that people showed up, I think, is a demonstration of their commitment to the values of the school. So what was the sort of turnout rate in these dialogues?
So first of all, we don't know dialogue sessions, for parents and children. We do it for the children. Children do it, the share of their feelings with their classmates at the classroom together with teachers. Parents had their dialogue sessions with our facilitators at the evening separately. Only adults and parents came to and show up to these sessions, and the school teachers did that also separately as a school teachers, and also our trainers, our facilitators actually supported them and gave them ways how to work with this with the children also. So yeah, I can say that people came. We did that very, very carefully. For example, one of the things at the beginning, at least, that we recommended people is to share actually how they feel, if they want to share stories, if they want to bring something that happened with them or with their families. And for example, at the beginning, we recommended people not to talk political conversation about how should the solution be, or who's guilty, and what did the Israeli government did, and what Hamas did, and who is more guilty than the other, and who did to whom 2 years or 3 years or 2 years ago. We thought that this will bring into to an explosion into the dialogue session, because we understand people were really angry, very hard feelings. So we thought that in order to be able to talk to each other, we want to talk through the internal human level that we believe that we all share. So everyone felt afraid. Everyone wanted safety to his children and to his family. And in that sense, we had some common ground for both Jews and Arabs. And this is the way that we created this trust and open session for, the different circles of the organization.
Leah, I'd love to just hear your thoughts and perspective on, post October 7th in the schools.
Yeah, I think the schools have actually done better in a way. Like, it's been almost easier for the students than it's been for the adults, because they're younger, they're less cynical. I think the grief isn't perhaps as deep, and maybe the sense of loss isn't therefore as profound. And so our teachers, our educators have been extraordinary, and really, really held the classrooms as safe places where the students could come together and continue to do the daily things of learning, growing, talking about tough stuff, but also just being together like students, like kids. And we've had the dialogue staff and our educational staff support the teachers in doing that. But so in the schools, it's really been profound. And it's been, for us adults, when we go to the schools, it's been like this beautiful kind of like reprieve, like, yeah, this is what it can be like. This is what we're doing together. And then when we leave the schools and we go back outside, it's hard. It's hard. And in these shared spaces that Mohammed was talking about, where we have dialogue conversations, it was so right and wise to focus just on emotions and stories and grief, and not to talk about politics. We're starting to get into politics because you can't avoid it, and because it's not just a human matter, it's a political matter, like an ultimate solution to this problem. But even just dealing with the emotional level was very, very, it was painful. It was hard. There was a lot of awkward silences. There was it wasn't easy to hear people's sense of loss and grief, or to know what to share, or to know how people are going to receive it, how my Palestinian colleagues are going to receive my concern about my nephews and son who are in the army, or for my Palestinian colleagues to know how I'm going to listen to their losses with their families in Gaza. It's been hard for many, many months. And it's not just the immediate aftermath of October 7th, it's been the continuing war in Gaza, and what that does to Israeli society, how that's affecting Jews and Arabs in Israel and the Palestinian people everywhere. And it's something that's really, really very profoundly difficult for all of us.
Also, I can add also maybe a different dimension of what we did, and that was through the communities. We supported and helped to organize civil action together with our parents and communities. For example, almost in all of our communities, we organized food packages and support to families in the south who were out of their homes. And these were not only Jewish families, they were also Arab families. So we worked and we sent our communities and even children took part as an educational things of human solidarity. They brought things to the schools and together with our community team and volunteering parents, we organized packages and sent them to Arab and Jewish families who were out of their homes at the first weeks after October 7th. So that was also some of the things that we did, as a solidarity human action for both Jewish and Arab families.
Yeah, and really modeling shared society, right? It's not just Jews, right, sending food to Jews or Arabs sending it to other. We are collectively supporting one another. And
definitely.
I don't think, honestly, I don't think I have heard one example of that, Mohammed, other than what you just expressed in that brief anecdote. So I want to, we could go on for a while, but and you mentioned earlier, Mohammed, scale, right? Like you want to grow this, you want to grow the number of schools. Leah, I think you mentioned that was it Haifa that turned to Hand in Hand to help sort of some of the conversations around that. Yeah, Jaffa, I'm sorry. So what is the playing field around expanding the number of these schools? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? I mean, some of the challenges we might be able to anticipate, but I'm curious to hear from the two of you where does in the same way, Leah, that the Rabin assassination was an inflection point for you to go to Israel and make a difference, I suspect that for a lot of people, both American Jews, but in particular Israelis, Jews, Arabs, this will be an inflection point for creating that kind of, I hope, that kind of shared society. I mean, we know it could go the other way, and we see some of those headwinds, but the schools seem to be an important part of this conversation. So just talk us through some of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for you in growing this network.
Muhammad, what's that?
Yeah, I can say that we want to grow and we will grow. I can share with you that in these weeks, I'm working as a director of a growth initiatives. I'm working with parents up north, very close to Akko and Nahariya, about opening a bilingual hand-in-hand track for next September. I can say that we have the base of families that want to join us, and if things would go good, I think that at the coming September, at September 25th, I think we're gonna open a new place. I can say that according to our plan, we want to open 3 schools at the coming 5 years, and that's what we're working on. I think for the future, we want to have a hand-in-hand school in every mixed city in Israel. We want to have a hand-in-hand school for every mixed region that Jews and Arabs, like, for example, in my region, that we have a few Jewish and Arab communities living very closely but separately from each other, and we want to have a school in order not to bring people together, to integrate not only children but also parents. And this is our vision, and this is our plan. As I said before, and just in one sentence, when I opened the school at my town at 2004, as I said before, it was at the middle of the Second Intifada. People thought that that we're offering people something like this, that we're coming from a different planet. We don't know what we're talking about or something like that. People thought that we're crazy. And these are crazy people established a school which worked for 20 years. So we're in a very tough time. It's a very difficult thing. People, as I said before, hesitate and doubtful and all those things. But I believe that if we, with determination and strong belief, we can succeed.
And I'd like to just echo that. I know I'm mindful of the fact we have 2 more minutes, and I want to show a 1-minute video, if that's okay, Rabbi, as we close.
Of course.
So, as Muhammad said, we are going to go, we're going to grow. We're going to go from strength to strength. This is a crisis, and I won't underestimate it in any way. But the thousands of students and thousands of parents who are part of Hand in Hand will grow this movement further. And with friends and partners like you, we will continue to grow. And I want to share a quick video, but I'll let you say something, Rabbi. You were about to.
I was just going to say that our history has always been about turning crises into opportunities, right? So this should be no different. I'll come back to wrap things up after the video, but why don't we go to the video, as long as you have all the sharing capabilities you need.
I think I do. Let's see if this works.
Leah, Mohammed, I want to thank you for being with us this afternoon. Really inspiring hour, and in a time that feels dark, giving us a little bit of hope in the future. We We're going to be in Israel in November with the synagogue. We've got 2 buses, hopefully, of adult members coming over to sort of, a year out type of trip. And I'm hoping, and we will be in touch, that we can possibly visit
It
one of
would
the
be our
schools.
pleasure. It would be our
Really is
pleasure to
important for
host
us
you.
to, it's an important narrative for us to hear. Ruth, Debbie, I want to thank you again for championing this, and hope that we will see you all soon. Again, Leah, Mohammed, thank you for your time.
Thank
We
you.
wish everyone a good day.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very
Thank
much for
you.
your time. Take
Bye-bye.
care,
Thank you.
everybody.